The rotors thundered over the Arizona desert, chopping the air so violently the ground below blurred into a brown haze. The Black Hawk hovered at 12,000 feet, nose tilted slightly forward, lights off, running dark like it was already in enemy territory. Inside the cabin, 6 Army Rangers stood clipped to the safety line, faces hidden behind goggles and helmets, every movement sharp and practiced. And then there was her. She stood at the edge of the open door, one hand gripping the overhead bar, boots planted like she was standing on solid ground instead of empty sky. Her name tape read H. Carter, no rank displayed, no unit patch beyond the Ranger scroll. To most of the men on board, she was still a question mark. She hadn't spoken since Wheels Up. Staff Sergeant Miller leaned closer to the crew chief and shouted over the rotors, "You sure about this? She's not even on the jump roster." The crew chief didn't look back. Orders came straight from battalion. Don't ask. Miller glanced at Carter again. She wasn't checking her harness, wasn't adjusting straps, wasn't doing the nervous pre-jump rituals everyone else did before a high-altitude extraction drill. She was waiting. The pilot's voice crackled over intercom. 30 seconds. One of the Rangers muttered, "This is a no-shoot drill. Who put someone new on a no-shoot drill?" Another replied, "Someone who wants to make an example." Carter turned her head slightly. "You talk too much," she said calmly. The cabin went quiet. Miller frowned. "You got a problem, Carter?" She met his eyes, steady, unbothered. "No, Sergeant. I just don't like noise before exits." Before he could respond, the crew chief raised a fist. 10 seconds. The Black Hawk stabilized. Wind screamed into the cabin like a living thing. The safety line ran across the Rangers' harnesses, clipped tight. This wasn't a parachute jump. This was a forced extraction drill. Fast release, rapid descent, ground team timing the landing zone. Dangerous even for veterans, deadly for anyone who hesitated. Miller watched Carter step closer to the edge. "You're up last," he shouted. She shook her head. "No, first." "That's not—" She reached down and unclipped herself from the safety line. Every Ranger froze. "What the hell are you doing?" Miller yelled. The crew chief spun around. "Reclip now!" Carter didn't. She leaned out into the open air, desert stretching endlessly below. For half a second, everyone thought the same thing. She's about to die. The crew chief lunged for her. Too late. Carter stepped backward and disappeared into nothing. No rope, no chute, just empty sky. The cabin erupted. "Jesus! She fell! Turn around!" The pilot shouted. "What just happened back there?" Miller stared at the open door, heart pounding. She went out. No line, no parachute." The helicopter banked instinctively, crew scrambling, panic bleeding into voices. Then a calm voice cut through the chaos. "Stop maneuvering." Everyone froze. The sound came through the intercom, clear, controlled. Carter. Miller's eyes snapped to the radio. "That's not possible." Her voice continued, steady as if she were standing right beside them. "You're drifting 5 meters east. Hold hover." The pilot swallowed. "Who is this?" "You already know," Carter replied. "Timer says 3, 2, 1. There was a dull thud through the airframe. Not a crash, a landing. Then silence. 10 seconds later, her voice returned. "Ground secured, extraction drill complete." No one spoke. The crew chief's mouth hung open. She planned that," Miller whispered. "That wasn't a fall. That was a controlled descent insertion." The pilot exhaled slowly. That was a controlled free descent insertion. Below them, barely visible through the dust, Carter stood up, dusting off her sleeves like she'd stepped off a curb. She keyed her mic again. "You can pick me up whenever you're ready." The helicopter hovered in stunned silence. Back at base, the after-action review room felt tighter than usual. Screens displayed telemetry data, altitude graphs, wind drift, descent speed. Every number told the same impossible story. Carter sat at the end of the table, helmet off now, hair pulled back, hands folded. Battalion Commander Reeves stared at the screen. You exited a helicopter at 12,000 feet without a parachute. Yes, sir. And survived. Yes, sir. Miller finally found his voice. That wasn't Ranger School doctrine. Carter looked at him. No, it was pre-doctrine. Reeves leaned back. Explain. She nodded once. Controlled free descent insertion, terrain-assisted deceleration, trained before it had a name, used when parachutes compromise mission integrity. The room went silent. Reeves narrowed his eyes. Who trained you? Carter hesitated. Then, my father. Reeves stiffened. Henry Carter? She nodded. A few of the older NCOs exchanged looks. That's impossible, one muttered. He disappeared years ago. Carter's voice stayed level. He didn't disappear. He stopped being useful to paperwork. Reeves exhaled. You're saying this technique? To be used before Rangers wore tabs, before manuals, before permission, she finished. Miller shook his head slowly. You let us think you were dead. She met his gaze. On real missions, hesitation gets people killed. I needed to know who panicked. The room absorbed that. Reeves stood. Why reveal it now? Carter looked around the room. Because someday soon, someone will order a Ranger out of a helicopter with no parachute, and they'll need to know it's survivable. A long pause. Then Reeves nodded. Dismissed. Outside, the Rangers gathered near the tarmac. Conversations were quieter now, respectful, different. Miller approached Carter, removing his helmet. You scared the hell out of us. She allowed the smallest smile. Good. He nodded once. Guess Rangers really don't need parachutes. She looked toward the helicopter, rotor slowing. We don't need a lot of things. We just need preparation. As she walked away, one Ranger whispered to another. They didn't throw her out. The other nodded. She chose the ground. And from that day on, whenever a helicopter door opened during training, no one ever joked about falling again, because they had seen what happened when someone stepped into the void and owned it.